This is the Chris Stigall Show podcast.
Okay, guys, let's just rip. And Chris Stigall.
Chris Stigall. Chris, thanks for being with me tonight.
Chris Stigall.
I'm joined now by Chris Stigall.
Now, he puts the broad in broadband. It's Chris Stigall.
The Chris Stigall podcast is presented by usmedicalplan.com. Save big money monthly and get better health coverage at usmedicalplan.com.
Well, hey there, welcome in. It's Monday. It's the, 10th day of April already? Wow, we're creeping up on tax filing season. I've got to hurry up and get that done. I'm a little delayed. I thank you so much for downloading the Chris Stigall Show podcast. Hey, thanks for your 5-star reviews. If you have not given this podcast a 5-star review yet, what's wrong with you? Why won't you help a brother out? Just a quick 5 stars at Spotify or Apple iTunes. You do that all the way at the menu of the bottom of the menu of shows. You scroll all the way down. You can leave 5 stars in a written review. You just don't know how helpful that is. I appreciate it. Coming up today, John Hayward, our great friend and a great thought leader as far as I'm concerned. We have a lot to explore. Kevin McCarthy met with the head of Taiwan. What's going on there, the dynamic there? There's been a big rush to blame the Russians for leaking intel on the Ukraine-Russian war front. These Tennessee lawmakers who lost their jobs because the legislator booted them out. Now they've become the great civil rights heroes of our time somehow. The transgender movement. AOC saying we should just ignore the judiciary. Clarence Thomas, we should impeach him. And so much more. This show is crazy. I'll warn you. I hope you unplugged this weekend. I know I did, but spending some time yesterday in preparation for today's show, there's a lot to unpack. I've just scratched the surface, so don't go anywhere. Let me first tell you about the guy who makes this show possible. Have you watched the video of my conversation with John Ruhlman yet? John Ruhlman, usmedicalplan.com. usmedicalplan.com. The website is a great resource unto itself, but if you go to chrisstigall.com, you can watch the full video of my conversation with John. In that conversation, I ask him, could it be that people call you, give you a couple of minutes and say, here's what I have for health insurance right now, John. Is it good enough? And the answer is yes. Sometimes he will say, yeah, the insurance plan is fine. He's not there to give you the hard sell.
Yes. I mean, we're not in a situation where we have to just sell every client that we talk to. I mean, that's not who we are. That's not how we build a credible company. You know, we build a credible company because there are a few people that we talk to every week that are in their best possible situation. I'm going to advise them to stay where they're at. And it's not our goal to
I have personal friends. I tell this story a lot, and I think maybe I sound like white noise after a while because people say, yeah, I've heard you tell the story before. But it's just true. I have friends. Now, I have insurance through my employer, but I have friends who buy, family of 4. He buys insurance for himself, his wife, and his 2 children. His daughter has some special health concerns. And he said, Chris, when I reached out, I found out I could get better coverage than I have currently for my daughter and the rest of us in the family, and I saved $2,000 a month. $2,000, John. I mean, that may be an extreme example, but that's extraordinary money. Does that happen a lot?
I would say 1 in 5 people that we talk to are in a really bad insurance situation. It could be on cost, it could be on coverage, and all day long we're helping people in that exact situation. I mean, it's not uncommon for us to say we save clients 40 to 60%.
40 to 60. That's meaningful.
Almost every time it's better coverage, Chris.
Again, his number 877-410-4321. This full conversation, all 40 minutes of it, is at chrisstigall.com if you want to get a sense of who he is before you call. But please call and save some money. usmedicalplan.com. I tell you, you just got to stick with me, and if I'll tell you what's going to happen before it even happens, even on Easter. I couldn't resist it. When I saw this Clarence Thomas story, I couldn't resist. And I said over the weekend, you know what's coming, don't you? You know what they're going to do. They're going to move to impeach Clarence Thomas. And that's precisely what AOC is suggesting. They have nabbed Clarence and his wife. The Thomases have been nabbed for taking gifts. I guess luxury trips or some such thing. And Thomas said, hey, look, yeah, I took them. I mean, he's not lying. He's not hiding from it. He said, yeah, I took trips. It was my understanding that it was in the clear. There was nothing improper or illegal about it. But they've been going after Justice Clarence Thomas for a while. And I said, well, look, the only thing standing in the way between the insane radical left and you and me at this point. It's not corporate America. It's not the Congress. There's really nothing with the exception of 6 justices in black robes. That's it. I mean, the federal judiciary is pretty stocked with a lot of Trump appointees. But eventually, left-wing judiciary is, we're all kind of at their, at the end of the day, 6 justices in black robes, only one of whom is black, interestingly. They're the only ones that stand in the way of the entirety of the country collapsing, as far as I can say. I mean, I hate to say it that dramatically, but that's about all that's left is these 6 people. And the one they're going after is the black guy, interestingly. And I said, they're going to try to impeach him. They're going to try one by one to pick these people off, besmirch them to such a degree, there's going to be no choice left but to throw him out. One by one, they will, and once they're done with him, if they can figure out how, they'll keep moving on to the next and the next and the next. They're going to try to sully the characters of these 6 justices. They're the only thing standing in the left's way. And sure enough, what did AOC say over the weekend? Take it away.
More about the Supreme Court and what you mentioned before, which is that Justice Clarence Thomas, you want him to be impeached after a new ProPublica report this week revealed that he accepted luxury vacations from a Republican billionaire donor without disclosing them. Thomas is now defending himself, and here's what he's saying. He's saying, quote, early in my tenure at the court, I sought guidance from my colleagues and others in the judiciary and was advised that this sort of personal hospitality from close personal friends who did not have business before the court was not reportable, rather. What is your response?
I think that his own statement contradicts many of the facts on the ground and also raises in other ways even more serious questions. Later on in his statement, he stated that the reason and the rationale for this exemption was personal hospitality from an old friend. And he said himself in his statement, a friend of 25 years. Justice Thomas has been on the court for 30 years. And so to say what he is admitting in his statement in an attempt to defend himself is that he began this relationship with a billionaire and receiving these sorts of gifts after he was appointed to the Supreme Court of the United States. I think that in and of itself indicates a very, very serious problem. And then on top of that, he is now implicating his colleagues. And I do believe that Chief Justice John Roberts must now come forward and state if he allows and is allowing this kind of very serious corruption to happen on this court. Corruption. I think, when it comes to Justice Thomas's statement, when he's talking about his colleagues and when he's talking about who advised him to break the law, I think we need to know who those people are.
Yeah.
To the Justice Department?
She's deeply concerned about the Justice Department. She's deeply concerned about the corruption at the Supreme Court. Deeply concerned. So concerned you hear her still writhing to this day about who leaked the Dobbs decision. She's still deeply concerned about who, right? She's constantly tweeting about who leaked the Dobbs decision. She's very concerned about the sanctity of the Supreme Court, right? You hear her all the Fast Eddie, you have lots and lots of audio of her talking about the sanctity of the Supreme Court and how the Dobbs decision being leaked is a violation and we got to get to the bottom of it. She's still talking and tweeting about that, right? You have lots and lots of audio of AOC saying that?
I can look.
Oh, you have none, I think. I think the answer is no, you have none of that. You have none of that. You will have no tweet. You can Google search. You will find none of it. The fact that AOC has been rolled out, this reminds me of when she fake handcuffed herself. She and Ilhan Omar got fake handcuffed out in front of the Supreme Court. When AOC is sent out, that's the trial balloon. She is the, they don't have a ton of respect for her on the left, but she's a useful idiot, and so they send her out to lead the parade. She's the Chinese spy balloon to the left. So, I mean, she was sent out on the weekend circuit. That was yesterday. That was Easter Sunday. Friday, she was on with Anderson Cooper saying that the Biden administration just ignore the courts. So they are sending AOC out as the missile, the torpedo, to take out the judiciary. Anybody that rules the way the Biden administration or she doesn't like, or any member of the judiciary they don't like, they are on a full-scale assault. The judicial branch is the only thing left stopping these people. And so they have sent her out as the mascot to take down the judicial branch. This is Friday.
There
Anderson
has been
Cooper.
thought, I believe, given to this. Senator Ron Wyden has already issued statements, for example, advising what we should do in a situation like this, which I concur, which is that I believe that the Biden administration should ignore this ruling. I think that the courts have the legitimacy and they rely on the legitimacy of their rulings. And what they are currently doing is engaged in an unprecedented and dramatic erosion of the legitimacy of the courts. It is the justices themselves, through the deeply partisan and unfounded nature of these rulings, that are undermining their own enforcement.
So you're saying the Biden administration should ignore this court, but what does that look like? What does that actually mean?
That means it's illegal, actually. It means it's not part of the Constitution, you moron.
When it comes to a ruling is that it relies on enforcement. And it is up to the Biden administration to enforce, to choose whether or not to enforce such a ruling.
And you have the audio where Anderson Cooper then jumped in and said, well, that's the erosion of the Constitution and our democratic republic as we know it. What you're suggesting is ignoring a co-equal branch of the government, AOC. That would be unconstitutional. That would be a complete dissolution of the country as founded, AOC. Anderson Cooper, you have the audio there where Anderson Cooper jumped in and argued with her and said, no, this can't be. You have that, I'm sure.
I'm typing up the transcript right now.
I see. So you have that clip?
I don't.
Oh, he didn't say that.
No, I'm sorry.
He just let that hang out there and...
He did.
Okay,
yeah.
so AOC goes on a network television show and says, we just need to ignore that there's a judicial branch. And Anderson sat back and said, profound, yes. And stroked his chin. Or whatever he strokes. I see. Well, look, we are in uncharted water here, folks. They're just telling you now they don't intend to pay attention to an entire branch of government. The judicial branch matters not. And if they rule the way they don't like, we'll just ignore it. You don't have to enforce it. What's the rule of law, says AOC. Okay. Well, I don't know how you come back from that exactly. It was quite a weekend. From the Wall Street Journal, the smearing of Clarence Thomas. ProPublica, a left-leaning website, kicked off the fun with a report Thursday heading into the holiday weekend that Justice Thomas has a longtime friendship with a guy called Harlan Crow, which is a great old guy wealthy name, by the way. If I had a friend named Harlan Crow, I would assume you'd know he was a wealthy billionaire. Probably from the South and probably in oil. Like I picture this guy wears rhinestone suits and big hats, boots with spurs, probably all in white. Harlan Crow. Doesn't that sound like a rich guy from the South?
Yeah. Mr. Crow.
Yeah. This is my friend Harlan Crow, a wealthy Texas real estate developer. Of course he is. Anyway, intrepid reporters roamed far and wide to discover that Justice has sometimes traveled on Mr. Crow's private jet, and that each summer the Justice and his wife spend a vacation week at Mr. Crow's place in the Adirondacks. The piece is loaded with words and phrases intended to convey that this is all somehow disreputable. Super yacht, luxury trips, exclusive California all-male retreat, sprawling ranch, private chefs, elegant accommodation, opulent lodge, lavish the Justice with gifts. All quotes from the ProPublica article. Overkill is the method of bad polemicists who don't have much to report. So the ProPublica writers suggest that Justice Thomas may have violated ethics rules, and they quote a couple of cherry-picked ethicists to express their dismay. But it seems clear that the court's rules at the time of all of this, when it happened, didn't require that gifts of personal hospitality be disclosed. This includes the private plane trips. ProPublica fails to make clear to readers that the U.S. Judicial Conference recently changed its rules to require more disclosure. The new rules took effect last month. Thomas would have been obligated to disclose gifts that posed a conflict of interest involving cases that would be heard by the High Court, but there's no evidence that Mr. Crow has any such business before the court. And Mr. Crow says he's never asked about a pending or lower court case. Folks, there are United States senators at this hour who have taken lavish gifts and influence. The senator from New Jersey, Bob Red Light Menendez. A hung jury is literally the only reason that guy's not in federal prison right now. Bob Menendez should be in federal prison. A United States senator whose great friend was on the take from the federal government, the grift through Medicare, Medicaid payments, flying Senator Menendez to the Dominican. The Dominican. Right. Dr. Salman Melgen, the eye doctor, who is in federal prison if memory serves, he went away. Old Bobby Red Light Menendez did not. He's still voting in the United States Senate today. Literally the only thing that kept him from a bribes, what was that ruling ultimately? It was a hung jury, if memory serves. He was brought up on multiple charges of bribery and improper spending and gifts. This is so stupid. Justice Thomas has a great friend from 30 years ago who's rich and likes to, spoil him and his wife. Absolutely no court cases before Clarence Thomas regarding this guy or his businesses. And we're supposed to impeach him. Throw him out of the... Right, okay. Anyway, Justice Thomas said Friday, and you heard some of that, during a statement, early in my tenure at the court, I sought guidance from my colleagues and others in the judiciary and was advised that this sort of personal hospitality from close personal friends who did not have business before the court was not reportable. He added that these guidelines are now being changed, and it is, of course, my intent to follow the guidance in the future. None of this will stop the political stampede to portray the Crow-Thomas friendship as a scandal, to tarnish the justice and the current court, writes the Wall Street Journal. This campaign has been underway with particular ferocity since the court's majority shifted during the Trump years toward justices who have an originalist view of interpreting the law and the Constitution. Justice Thomas, the leading target, because his long-held views on the law have found new adherents. As the longest tenured justice now on the court, he has the power to assign writing duties for opinions that he is in the majority, but Chief Justice John Roberts isn't. Ted Lieu, Democrat, California. Is Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas corrupt? I don't know, but his secretive actions absolutely have the appearance of corruption. And he apparently violated the law. For the good of the country, he should resign. Aha. The press has climbed onto its ethical high horse and is demanding reform at the court. All of this needs robust investigation, says Senator Sheldon Whitehouse. Dick Durbin dutifully saluted upon Mr. Whitehouse's order and said his committee will act to impose a new enforceable code of conduct for the court. It's ugly politics, but the left is furious it lost control of the court. It wants it back by whatever means possible, writes the Wall Street Journal. That's exactly correct. So get ready. Coming soon to a theater near you will be the Senate hearings on the dirt surrounding Justice Thomas. What other shady dealings are these members of the court involved in? Why, I bet you may even hear that Justice Thomas is summoned before the United States Senate again to testify. What kind of corrupt, dirty deals have he and his wife been involved in? What kind of money has been lining his pocket? What kind of gifts and graft? And by the way, how has that impacted the way he's ruled on certain... For the good of the country, Justice Thomas, you should resign. Or as AOC said, we should move to impeach. And if we don't like their rulings, we should just ignore them. Joe Biden is making real heroes out of the expelled Democrats down in Tennessee. Now, heading into the weekend, you'd be forgiven if you'd never heard of these people. I certainly had not. And then all of a sudden, they were everywhere. It was all anybody could talk about. Literally never heard of these people. Didn't even know what was going on. Did you have any idea? In fact, what I knew about the Tennessee legislature, the last time I talked about the Tennessee legislature, was when a bunch of insurrectionists stormed into their legislative session while they were on the floor. This happened in Kentucky and Tennessee. Stormed into their chambers. Insurrection. It was a full-blown insurrection. Like, state troopers had to go in and remove these people, lunging at signs, yelling, screaming at representatives on the floor of the legislature in Tennessee and Kentucky. That happened right after the Christian school shooting in Nashville. So, that's the last time I talked about the Tennessee legislature. But now the Tennessee Three, they even have a nickname. And you're like, who? Same with me. No idea. The Tennessee Three. Well, I guess one of them has been reinstalled or some such thing. So there's only two. And, of course, the two that are left are black. The Tennessee Three are down to two. I don't know what they call them. Still the Tennessee Two, I guess. The white woman is going to stay, I guess. But the legislature in Tennessee moved to basically originally throw out three of these people. All Democrats, of course. And why? Because they stood with the insurrectionists in holding up the legislative process during protests and broke and violated norms. Now, John Dickerson over at CBS said that this is the kind of thing that will lead to violence. I kid you not. Dickerson said, and I quote, "Politics needs some cartilage. It needs some give. It can't be brittle. So when you have a situation where, okay, Republican lawmakers thought these Democrats broke decorum and stepped out of line, there are a series of steps to punish. But when you go the maximalist and kick them out, that's brittle. There's no give. When there's no give, the other side gets to respond only by punching back." Is that a fact, John? That's interesting. Boy, it sure seems like there's a lot of very extreme rhetoric coming from the left these days. Ignore the courts, impeach the justices, punch back. There's no give, says Dickerson. When there's no give, the other side gets to respond only by punching back. And so when you lose those interim steps, all you get in response is a response. And that's only, where this leads, right? That leads to violence. CBS's John Dickerson says, basically, you can't blame these guys if they end up getting violent for being removed by their colleagues in the Tennessee legislature because the Republicans who removed them acted brittly. There were other ways to deal with them. But since the Republicans got tough and were brittle, the only logical response can be violence. So this is where we are. People like AOC saying over the weekend, let's impeach Justice Thomas, let's ignore the courts. John Dickerson saying, well, if you're going to throw Democrats out of the legislature for misbehaving, then I think the only response is violence. Does it feel like we're careening quickly? Starting to feel like we're really ratcheting this up to a 10 fast. Strange for a party that has almost total control of the country. And, of course, wasting no time, cackle britches, the husk, and even the one popped out of his hole. I noticed over the weekend. Suddenly these Tennessee Two are the great martyrs. Why, you'd be forgiven if you thought this weekend was an acknowledgement of the crucifixion and the resurrection of Christ. No, the real martyrs of the weekend were the Tennessee Two. Oh, it's all they talked about all weekend long. Oh, what a travesty. Joe Biden has invited the expelled Democrats to the White House. His invitation along with statements praising them for seeking to ban assault weapons and standing up for our Democrat values. Cacklebritches was screaming over the weekend. She went down to Tennessee, just screaming and yelling.
They chose to lead and show courage to say that a democracy allows for places where the people's voice will be heard and honored and respected. And they understood the importance, these three, of standing to say the people will not be silenced, to say that a democracy hears the cries, hears the pleas, who hears the demands of its people, who say the children should be able to live and be safe and go to school and not be in fear. They said, we understand.
Yeah, I can't do it. I can't listen to her. I'm not going to start your week that way. Barack Obama, the nation was built on peaceful protest. No elected official should lose their job simply for raising their voice, especially when they're doing it on behalf of our children. What happened in Tennessee is the latest example of a broad erosion of civility and democratic norms. Silencing those who disagree with us is a sign of weakness, not strength, and won't lead to progress. How hard can my eyes roll back in the back of my head for this one? Democrats just arrested a former president and the leading candidate for president of the United States and the Republican nomination. Now democracy's threatened because the legislature in Tennessee expelled 2 Democrats who led an occupation of the state capitol and disruption of official proceedings. Is that right? The threat to democracy are 2 guys who literally locked up, brought the legislative session in Tennessee to gridlock, hijacked official proceedings. Removing them is now an erosion of our democracy, says Cacklebritches and the Husk. And yes, even the former president of the United States who came out of his hole. And they're all out. Both the Tennessee, too, these 2 guys, these great civil rights warriors pumping their fist in the air. Yeah, because it's all about... You'll note in all of this talk down in Tennessee that's supposedly about the children, we've never heard from the parents at the school. The parents at the school who lost kids have not been invited to the White House. There's been no talk of this school at all. I think Dr. Jill placed some flowers there, and that was it. Why, we're supposed to feel more sorry for these 2 Tennessee legislators than we are the dead children, I guess. Pretty unprecedented times, folks. I have to tell you, we are in some uncharted waters here with this bunch, but we soldier on. It's been my pleasure and honor to talk about Bob Spinato at Williamsburg Dental in Broomall, just off the Blue Route, as my dentist and friend of over 12 years now. But now he has 2 brand new associates, his daughter Alexa and Dr. Geddes. Tell them about him, Bob.
Yeah, it's really a thrill for me to have both the dentists, my daughter and Dr. Jared Geddes. One of the things that I love about them both is when they don't have a patient in their chair, they're in my room watching what I do and trying to learn from me. And we hear enough about the new generation, and if they think they know everything and they don't want to work. And I've got 2 dentists who are really, really want to learn and really, really willing to work hard. And I enjoy learning from them. They brought some new skills and some new technologies to our office that will be great benefits to our patients. And so, if anything, I think that having them both there is going to expand and lengthen my career as opposed to shorten my career.
Pick up the phone or go online, make that appointment, 610-353-2700 or williamsburg-dental.com.
Loud echoes from our recent past in the South and in the 60s. But this also feels like the inevitable moment that you have when you have these gerrymandered supermajorities that have become calcified.
Absolutely.
Because that's just what it felt like, a whole bunch of people who just don't deal with dissent.
Absolutely. I mean, look, I was down in Nashville.
Absolutely.
I spoke with the Tennessee Three
total
and state
sense.
legislators
Three.
there. What is happening in Tennessee
Tennessee
and
Three,
frankly
they have a
across the
nickname
South
already.
is in fact Jim Crow. What Jim
It's
Crow
Jim
was
Crow.
blocking black people from the ability to have participation in their government, disenfranchising lawmakers. And it's not just Tennessee. Look at what's happening in Mississippi. Coming in to Jackson and the state legislature stepping in. Look at Governor Abbott in Texas. Look at what's happening in Florida. This is an all-out assault.
Governor Abbott, the story you're glossing, I know we wanted to be quick, and I appreciate you doing that with time, but looks like he's okay if there's a pardon of a Travis County, a blue county prosecution, a murder conviction of a Black Lives Matter
He
protester.
put out a statement and said, I welcome the pardon on my desk so I can sign it. And so it is an assault. And I think these young people, young state legislators who stood up, they have galvanized the movement.
Brendan, not a single national Republican leader has supported what Tennessee has done. It is no doubt in my mind the silence is at least sending a message of, oh my God, what that looks terrible. But I don't think it's helping the party's image.
No, I mean, what do they do? I mean, this happened in Congress in 2016. We had a sit-in where Democrats took over the House floor, and we had members who wanted us to arrest them, wanted us to arrest John Lewis on the House floor. But you realize that's a bad look. But here's another situation where you have a state legislature who is defining the party. No one is in charge, and there's no consequences for any of these legislatures. As you said, their districts are such that they're not going to be voted out because
half
they did
of them
this.
didn't face any opponent.
So you see what's going on here with the FDA and the abortion pill, with the Tennessee 3. You hear the Democrats' playbook, right? It's the same as it's always been. It's the same record they're playing over and over and over again. Hey, ladies. Hey, black folks. The Republicans are mean. It's Handmaid's Tale and slavery. That's it. And white Republicans are still running everything. Did you know that? White male Republican. It's still the plantation-owning South. There has been no advancement whatsoever. Now, again, never mind that the former president of the United States was just arrested last week. Never mind that Riley Gaines was just verbally assaulted, physically assaulted, just for speaking out on a college campus. Never mind the Department of Justice targeted school board parents who spoke out. Never mind that the FBI worked with social media to censor and silence information and your voice from participating in social media. Never mind. All these threats to democracy are all coming from Southern Republican governors, don't you know? It's the Deep South all over again, which, again, as just a historical matter, it bears repeating again that all the Southern governors who were the institutional racists of our American history were all Democrats. That was the Democrat Party. The fire hoses, the dogs, the sit at the back of the bus, the lunch counter stuff, the water fountain, all Democrat policies. Everyone, all of it. But again, this revisionist history is Republicans in the South want to subjugate blacks. And the judiciary is taking away women's reproductive rights. So you women are going to be barefoot and pregnant, chained in the kitchen, and you blacks are going to be back on the plantations if Ron DeSantis and Greg Abbott are successful. I don't know. Does this stuff work, Fast Eddie?
Yes,
Okay.
it does.
It works.
Yep.
How do you fight it?
Good question, man. I don't know.
Matt Walsh said something radical people do radical things, folks. The Democrat Party is the most radical party the country's ever seen. And they've done so by bastardizing absentee voting, and Republicans largely just stood around and complained about it. But also as a cultural matter, just quickly, Matt Walsh tweeted this over the weekend. I thought it was pretty profound. He said, "The left has taken away all of the neutral cultural ground. This is why brands like Bud Light and Nike are giving endorsement deals to a dude in a dress. In the past year, a beer company could basically be culturally neutral. But the left has declared that you are either with them or you're against them. The silence is violence principle. So the brands have a choice. They can be baptized into wokeism and openly worship at the LGBTQ altar, or they can, by default, align themselves with conservatives. What do? Well, the left will do everything in their power, and they have a lot of power, to make them pay dearly for disloyalty. Piss off the right, on the other hand, and you'll have to deal with some angry tweets, and then nothing will happen. It's an easy choice. Go woke, go broke is just lame, says Matt Walsh. It's not even close to true. It should be true, but it isn't. By sheer numbers, we have the power to inflict severe financial damage on companies that spit in our faces, but we don't. And the brands know that we don't. We're so behind in the culture war that nearly every company is woke now. We can't even boycott them all, which is a fact conservatives use as an excuse to do nothing, and this attitude infects the right. If we try to solve the problem, there will still be other problems over here, so why bother at all? It's a loser's mantra. In fact, Matt says instead we should just pick a victim, gang up on the victim, make one example out of one victim, and so on. Strategic targeting. Pick one, isolate one, go after one. Take them down one at a time. Make examples of them one at a time as a collective. The problem is many conservatives don't have the stomach or attention span for this. Our political leaders are almost completely useless. There is a way to win real victories. We just need a little grit and a little follow-through, says Matt Walsh. MyPillow.com. You know the jingle. There's MyPillow 2.0. It's out now, folks. I just slept on it again last night. You've been hearing for, 20 years. Mike has been making MyPillow. He's been making the commercials, and you wouldn't have thought you could improve upon a pillow, really. But the truth of it is, he's not only improved on the patented adjustable fill, but now he has a brand new fabric and a new temperature-regulating thread to keep you cool. If you sleep hot, and I kind of do, this is the softest, smoothest, coolest pillow, and I mean temperature cool, that you will ever own. And here's the deal. Mike is giving you a buy one, get one free offer with my name, Chris Podcast. When you use that as a promo code, Radio Listener Square, if you go to MyPillow.com and click on that Radio Listener Square, enter Chris Podcast, and you will get one free when you order a MyPillow 2.0. Chris Podcast, by the way, gets you up to 66% off everything on the site at MyPillow.com. Maybe it's the coffee. I am sipping MyPillow, My Coffee it's called, not My Pillow. It's My Coffee. It's delicious. Enjoying it right now. Thank you, Mike. He's got light roast and dark roast versions there, so try his coffee. Listen, support a great patriot, support great American companies like MyPillow and the employees that work there up there in Minnesota. It's a fantastic customer service-oriented company at MyPillow. Every product that you buy from them is a 10-year warranty and a 60-day money-back guarantee if for some reason you don't like it, but they're really high-quality stuff. I mean, the slippers themselves, I sent slippers to a member of the staff. My wife has the MyPillow slippers. I sent pillows. I sent a couple of dog beds. Dean, my dog, is on a MyPillow dog bed, which he loves. Robes and bath towels, whole bath sheets, those great big absorbent bath sheets, if you like those. These Giza Dream Sheets we sleep on are like sleeping on a cloud. You will love these products. I just hope you go to MyPillow.com. Use my promo code, ChrisPodcast. Get that buy one, get one on the new MyPillow, or up to 66% off every product. MyPillow.com, promo code ChrisPodcast. Molly Shannon was the host of Saturday Night Live, which made me mildly interested in it because Molly Shannon is of the 90s and early 2000s SNL, I think. I don't remember when she left exactly, but this was back during the, I don't know, was it late 90s she was there? That was Will Ferrell and some of the others, back when they still were trying to actually do comedy that wasn't politics all the time. She did, with Anna Gasteyer, they did the NPR ladies, which was hilarious. The Sweaty Balls ladies. She did Mary Catherine Gallagher. This was back when Will Ferrell and Sherry O'Terry did the cheerleader thing. And it was silly. And you may not think they were the funniest sketches, but there was a lot of just kind of silly, kind of classic characters that came of that era. That was more cowbell. That whole scene was much... that was even during the, I think, early 2000s, George W. Bush, Al Gore debate. Daryl Hammond played Al Gore at Lockbox, and Will Ferrell did the George W. Bush thing. And I know people didn't think he was particularly fair to George W. Bush, whatever, but it still wasn't nearly. And actually, I will say that Saturday Night Live's new portrayal of Trump, I forget the young guy's name who does Trump now, but it's actually much more fun and funny and less mean-spirited. The Alec Baldwin thing, Alec Baldwin hates Trump, we all know that, and so there was never any interest in actually trying to get it right. But I will say, because, it made me cringe, and I actually referenced this last week. They opened Saturday Night Live, it being Easter weekend. They opened it with The Last Supper. And then Trump walks out in front of The Last Supper and does this whole riff about how people are saying he's like Jesus. And the problem with it is there were more than a few people, and it was gross, and I didn't like it, and I called it out last week. There were more than a few people online who were trying to make Easter week about Trump being indicted, and I really hated that. And so it was one of those where I was like, well, that's kind of true because I kind of saw that from certain corners. But it was well done in that the guy who plays Trump was, he came back after 3 days. I'm not sure I would have done it in 2. Probably would have done it in 2. That kind of stuff. It was cute. Whatever. They don't like Trump. But it wasn't as nasty, right? You know the difference? Somebody's doing a character that's just being funny versus someone that's just being disingenuous and ugly, but not even trying to get the bit right. There's a difference.
Oh, Chris, absolutely. No, the era you're talking about where, Sherry O'Terry, Will Ferrell,
yes.
Molly Shannon, like that was more slapstick. It was a little more animated.
Yeah, like Will Ferrell's George W. Bush with, strategery. That's done, the keggers and, frat guy stuff. Everybody, you kind of knew it was absurd. It was absurdity being absurd. But anyway, so Molly Shannon comes back and she hosts this thing. And, whatever. It wasn't a great show. The show's not well written. It's not very well done. Most people aren't watching it these days. But I like to take note still when they veer off course for just a minute and do something kind of honest. And they did something kind of honest. They did a commercial for CN Zen, they called it. This is an app for your phone. It was a fake commercial, an app for your phone for people who hate Trump's guts, but are worried that he's not actually going to go away to prison. The app is designed for Trump lunatics, Trump derangement syndrome types. This is Saturday Night Live actually acknowledging that what just happened to Trump, and I know you're going to hear some partisanship in this, so just, don't get wound up, all right? Just don't write me later and say, why do you pay attention to that show? You've got to appreciate this for what it is and the venue in which it's happening. This is Saturday Night Live that hates Trump's guts. They want Trump in prison, as does everyone on the left. But some of the writers, and this actually made it to air, some people on that show acknowledged that what happened last week was flimsy at best. They're acknowledging that this guy does not have the goods on Trump. Trump is not going to go away to jail. He's not going to be locked up, that it actually may be helpful to Trump. And because of this, what they're acknowledging is some in their sphere can't let it go. They are so deranged with hate for Trump and want to see him in jail. Somebody said, it'd be funny, a bit called CN Zen. Let's create an app for people that just can't get enough. They're addicted to hating Trump and wanting to see Trump pay. Want to see him in jail. Even though we all know it's not going to happen, even though they're acknowledging it's not going to happen, this is a product for those who are Trump derangement syndrome laden. CN Zen. Listen.
These days, it's hard not to feel stressed out and overwhelmed. Sure, Trump got indicted, but now everyone says the case against him is weak and that he'll never serve any jail time. As someone whose entire personality is hating Donald Trump, you need more. You need to feel calm and reassured. You need the newest meditation app, CN Zen. The only app that suits even the most militant liberals, with sensual details from Trump's arrest, featuring your favorite CNN anchors and correspondents.
He's the first American president to ever be indicted. This is truly a historic and humiliating moment.
Trump is a sad, defeated man. They made him come from Florida, where it's 80 degrees, to New York, where it's only 60 degrees. How depressing for him.
And his motorcade wasn't even that big. I thought it would be bigger, but it was so small.
Donald was all alone. No family or friends to support him. I shouldn't say this as a journalist, but what a loser.
Let New York Times reporter Maggie Haberman soothe you to sleep.
This is his worst nightmare, and he's really freaking out because now he knows there are consequences. Consequences.
You can also listen to clips of Trump and his allies desperately spiraling.
Please, Donald J. Trump is an innocent man and he needs your help. Send him all your money today at DonaldJTrumpRU/fundraisingscam.guilty.
Trump's next court appearance won't be till at least December. That's why CNN has a whole section of Trump indictment ASMR.
Can you hear him getting fingerprinted? And the DA opening his big leather briefcase. Ooh, and the little gavel from the judge. I wonder if you'll even hear handcuffs.
With additional in-app purchases, like audio erotica of District Attorney Alvin Bragg reading all 34 felony counts.
Count 1, falsifying business records in the first degree. Count 2, falsifying business records in the first degree. Count 3, falsifying business.
Hope this couch isn't as flimsy as the DA's case.
CNN, because you waited 7 years for this indictment, and you want every delicious detail.
And what ethnicity is Trump's judge again?
Hispanic.
CNN, in your mind, he's already in jail.
Pretty good. Pretty good, right? Not something you'd expect from SNL these days. I mean, they made fun of lots of stuff there that we talked about last week. What ethnicity is Trump's judge? Hispanic, as if that matters. That whoever wrote this, or whichever consortium of writers at SNL wrote this, a moment of honesty with themselves. If they weren't conservatives, they were at least honest enough to back away. They set this up by saying, for those whose entire personality is about hating Trump. So this is an acknowledgement by SNL that there are people, maybe them, maybe most of them, or if not them, they acknowledge that there are people in their lives, their entire existence. And you may know somebody like this. You probably interact with people like this, maybe at work or online. Their existence, they wake every day more than anything else that motivates them, hating Donald Trump. And for this, they realized that last week was a total snow job. They know that these people whose existence about hating Trump, they're about to be let down big time. They're going to have to wait till December, and that the charges are likely flimsy at that. And so they create CNN, an app for you. And then what do they call it? Trump Indictment ASMR. What does that stand for? Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response. Sounds like audible porn is what it was. Sensory porn.
It's like when you get soothed by sound, so someone typing on a keyboard or even a train car or something like that. It's called ASMR. And people are like, ooh.
What ethnicity is Trump's judge? Hispanic. Pretty strong. I like Wolf Blitzer and Maggie Haberman from the New York Times reading into a microphone for a soothing app. CNN. Anyway. I thought you'd enjoy that. The odds of most of this audience listening to it, I'm sure, was slim to none or watching any of that show, so I wanted to call your attention to it. Rutgers. This is pretty hilarious. Today, Rutgers is going to go on strike, most of their faculty, in their 257-year history. The unions representing its 9,000 faculty and graduate student workers, virtually their entire teaching force, will go on strike at 9 o'clock this morning. All of Rutgers shutting down, going on strike. How you feel about those tuition checks in there, parents of Rutgers students? The decision, which affects all 3 Rutgers campuses in Newark, Camden, and New Brunswick, follows a meeting of union leaders Saturday evening and 10 months of unsuccessful negotiations, including more than 2 weeks of full-day sessions. I wonder what enrollment is like at Rutgers these days. You suppose it's down like it is in most... I have to tell you something. I am so proud of my boys because both of them, as they're approaching high school graduation and thinking about going on to college, one of the things that their high school offers is something called an A-plus program. And what that allows them to do is take some college-level courses and some other things that are kind of college preparatory in nature. But in doing so, in partnership with the community college, you can attend the community college at a deeply discounted rate through their high school. And this allows you to basically take deeply discounted general education requirement courses before you then go on to rather than go to a 4-year college and do the gen eds and the whole thing, this allows you to very cheaply and inexpensively take all your gen eds with a community college at a much lesser rate. And then you go on to specialize if you want some kind of specialty degree, you go for 2 years instead of 4. You basically, and this is something we haven't even encouraged in the boys, but this has been explained to them by their school, and I think it's brilliant. And so both my boys fully intend to do that. The idea of sending my sons to Rutgers or Temple or Villanova or anything at this point in my life is, I don't think I'd do it. I'm not sure I'd do it. It's amazing to me because I remember when my dad did not graduate from college. He went to college, didn't graduate. And I remember when it was time for me to go to college and I wanted to leave after my sophomore year because I had a $19,000 a year job to go work for a morning show. And I thought, well, I don't need anything for the rest of my life. That's all I need, Dad. I just got hired. I just got a job. I'm dropping out of school, and my dad fought me on that. My dad was of a generation and of the belief, and I'm sure there are many in this audience who still believe it, well, you got to have a college degree. You can't function without a college degree. And he just, even though my dad did fine, he was a middle-class guy most of his life, but my dad believed that the college degree was the thing. And I have some friends, although fewer than used to be, who still believe their kids, they've got to go into a 4-year 6-figure debt or drain their savings to send their kids off to a university. When you see 9,000 faculty and graduate student workers are going to go on strike today at Rutgers and you're paying that kind of money, how would you feel about it? I'd feel like the biggest simp in the world. I'd be furious. We intend for this new contract, of course, it's always about labor relations, contract, 10 months of unsuccessful negotiations. University President Jonathan Holloway, this gets very interesting now. The university president said in an email to Rutgers on Sunday night, he believes there are only a few outstanding issues in the negotiations. He says, to say this is going to be deeply disappointing would be an understatement, especially given that just 2 days ago, both sides agreed in good faith to the appointment of a mediator. Blah, blah, blah. But here's my favorite part. He says, this may be illegal. Phil Murphy released a statement Sunday night saying he was calling on the university and union bargaining committees to meet in his office Monday to have productive dialogue. But Holloway said this to these people in advance to their strike. This is the university president. Strikes by public employees are unlawful in New Jersey. Now, I don't know whether that's true or not. I don't know the law in New Jersey. But Holloway, by the way, not that this should be important, but it comes up later, so I'm going to bring it up. The president of Rutgers is black. Now, I say that for a reason, not because it should matter, but because it does to this story. So the president of Rutgers says in an email, strikes by public employees are unlawful in New Jersey, and we really hope that the courts aren't going to have to be involved here. Because if so, you guys are going to be deemed breaking the law, and if you are breaking the law, well, then you know what that means. I can fire every one of your asses, is basically what he's saying. And he could, and wouldn't that be lovely? Wouldn't you just love to see thousands of university puffed up, pretentious academics fired immediately? Wouldn't you just love it? I hate to admit how much I would love to see just a summary firing of everyone who works for Rutgers who goes on strike today. I would love it. Anyway, how was that met? Union people didn't like that at all when he said, There's precedent, public employees going on strike in New Jersey. It's not lawful. It'd be a real shame if the court had to get involved. Here's how the union responded. We know that as an expert in African American history, you have thought deeply about how struggles for racial justice have been consistently aligned with demands for jobs, labor rights, and democracy in the workplace. At a time when we are experiencing a full frontal assault on critical histories of the American past, academic freedom, tenure, and the right to organize as public sector workers, we ask you to work with the campus unions toward a just and fair contract. So said another way, hey, you're a black president. You can't threaten us with the law. You're black, Holloway. How dare you? You're black. And the president of Rutgers is like, I need you to come to work. And if you're not going to come to work, we're probably going to have to fire you. But you're black, say the unions. And? Let's see. Among those signing the letter, no surprise, Mark Lamont Hill. Remember him? Former Temple racist. Now a Rutgers racist, media studies and urban education. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I said former. I thought he had joined Rutgers. No, I guess he's still at Temple. I didn't know that. I thought he'd left. He's still there. Oh, well, Mark Lamont Hill, a Temple professor, signing on to the Rutgers Union. I'm sure that'll carry some weight. What, bi-state weight? Ooh, Mark Lamont Hill from Temple signed a letter of solidarity with the Rutgers professor. Well, I guess administrators should hide under their desks and... Anyway, people are horrified that he is trying to use the narrative that public sector strikes are illegal. Are we in New Jersey or are we in Florida? So that'll be something to watch. Rutgers' first black president says, I really don't want the court to get involved, but you guys are going to be breaking the law if you go on strike. And they're like, you're black. You can't do that to us. Well, the law is still the law. Noticing a theme today? Your feelings, your race, your whatever, your commitment to abortion, whatever, it doesn't matter. The law, what's it matter? Just ignore it. It's not right. Just ignore it. Great. Riley Gaines. Great friend of this show. Riley Gaines, you remember the 12-time University of Kentucky NCAA championship swimmer. Riley Gaines was mildly attacked over the weekend. A violent protest in San Francisco. She vowed she will not be deterred after a violent protest at San Francisco State University last week. Gaines rose to fame objecting to Leah Thomas, as you know, the University of Pennsylvania swimmer and biological male who now identifies as a woman. She was invited to speak at the San Francisco chapter of Turning Point USA Thursday night about her fight against biological male athletes competing in women's sports. Protesters, though, made their way into the room where Gaines was speaking. She told Tucker on Friday, "It was terrifying. The police did not inform me of any sort of action plan. Turning Point invited me to the campus. I delivered a very civil and respectful speech. I had great dialogue. Protesters were participating in a sit-in. Gaines described the room getting stormed with protesters. She was rushed with no one there to escort her to a safe place. She said, I was punched. I was hit multiple times. I was shoved. Until finally we exited the room, but she couldn't leave because the protesters flooded the halls. I was pushed into a classroom where I was barricaded for 3 hours." She shared video of terrifying scenes on Twitter. As for San Francisco State University itself, they released a statement praising the peaceful pro-transgender students. Today, San Francisco State finds itself again at the center of a national discussion regarding freedom of speech and expression. Let me begin by saying clearly the trans community is welcome and belongs at San Francisco State University, said the university in the statement. Further, our community fiercely believes in unity, connection, care, and compassion, and we value different ideas even when they are not our own. San Francisco State is regularly noted as one of the most diverse campuses in the United States. That's what makes us Gators. And that's what makes us great. Diversity promotes critical discussions, new understandings, and enriches the academic experience. But we may also find ourselves exposed to divergent views and even views we find personally abhorrent. These encounters have sometimes led to discord, anger, confrontation, and fear. We must meet these moments and unite with a shared value of learning. Thank you to our students who participated peacefully in Thursday evening's event. It took tremendous bravery to stand in a challenging space. You see, the protesters were brave. It took bravery for them to go. Now, I have spent time with Riley Gaines. She is I'm sure she could kick my ass, no doubt about it, but she is, I'm 5'9" and something, not quite 5'10", and she's much shorter than me. She's a petite woman. Again, very strong, very tough, but I mean, she's not exactly what I would call menacing and imposing, is my point. And just lovely, charming, sweet, polite, never raises her voice, never swears, nothing. There's nothing about Riley Gaines that is intimidating, imposing at all. And the university issues a statement that says they are proud. The president is proud of the tremendous bravery it took for these people to stand in a challenging space. And as you reflect, process, and begin to heal, please remember that there are people, resources, and services available ready to receive our Gator community. So the official statement from the University of San Francisco was Riley Gaines was the aggressor. Riley Gaines was the intimidator. And it took bravery for these protesters to be a part of that day. And if they need any help in dealing with their grief and their trauma from Riley's talk, there are services there to help them. Just like the guys in Tennessee. They're the brave ones. They're the martyrs. They're the victims. You see that this is all part of the same theme, folks. Every bit of every one of these stories today is all part of the same theme. You remember last year, the footage of him at the White House Easter egg roll, the Husk? Whoever it was that was the bunny, one of the White House press people, they came out, they were guiding him around. Remember the Husk? He didn't know. Literally, just look up Biden White House Easter egg roll last year. You will see video of the bunny, the actual rabbit in the costume. One of Biden's staffers was pointing him in the direction he needed. He was wandering around like, I'm lost, I don't know where to go. And the rabbit was pointing where he needed to go. It was one of the sadder displays you've ever seen. Democrats do unimaginably radical things because they can. This will be my Harumph Society post today. I do it 3 times a week, and I hope you'll check it out if you're not a member yet. Please subscribe and join us over there. Go to chrisstigall.com. It's linked up. But Democrats do radical things because they can. Remember what Bill Clinton said of his affair with Monica Lewinsky? He said he did it because he could. It's literally what which I appreciated the honesty. I did it because I could. They're morally bankrupt, but they do it because they can. Democrats, our buddy Guy Shiraki said Democrats sit at the cool kids table. They sit at the power table. They have a tremendous amount of power right now. Anyway, Karine Jean-Pierre on Friday at the White House. They continue somehow, remarkably, dead school children, dead staff, 6 dead at this Christian school in Nashville, and somehow this continues to be about the murderer and people in the murderer's community for whom we should feel sorry, not the dead Christians.
I know that these political attacks can really take toll on people's mental health. So I want to say directly to LGBTQI plus kids, you are loved just as you are, just the way you are. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, you call 988. the National Crisis Hotline and dial the number 3 to talk to a counselor who has been specifically trained to support LGBTQI plus kids. This is a new service that the Biden administration is proud to offer during these incredibly hard times for these trans kids.
Thankfully, Christian kids know they don't need a hotline. They can pray. LGBTQI+. I'm not that old, and we've added an I and a plus. John Hayward brilliantly writes about this better than anybody I know. I came across this Tablet magazine piece. It's like 51 pages, John, and I welcome John Hayward back. He's the national security deputy editor at Breitbart. But the power the Democrats have acquired, and this is sort of the theme of my newsletter today. It's what was written, and I know you write about all the time. Political goals of the Democrat Party infused with the sort of, if you will, the power of the government. That's, if you want to call it, the IRS, the DOJ, the FBI, and then the narrative power with the media, the moral fervor, and then the tech companies' surveillance and architecture. It's this kind of brilliant melding of all these institutions together that have created this toxic stew. I mean, this misery that surrounds it. It's fascism, if that's what you want to call it, Marxism. I don't know what you would call it, but it's a great dance that they've developed, and they execute it before we can even wake up and put our pants on. Good morning.
I think that's the right word, surround. Surround is the key word. It surrounds you. That's how totalitarianism works. It's everywhere all the time. You can't get away from it. You go to a movie, you get hit with political messaging. You pop open a beer, there's a political message on your beer can now. You go to watch a sport, it's all politicized. It's everywhere all the time. And they made it so by getting to be everywhere in the halls of power. Corporate power, media power, government power, they control all of it. And it reinforces each other. The whole thing about the Trump-Russia collusion hoax was a great example of using all these different kinds of power in like a cycle, almost like a washing machine chugging away as they laundered this phony story and turned it into concrete government action against their targets. There's nothing the right can do remotely like that right now, and it's kind of hard to see how that machine could be reprogrammed. It's going to have to be dismantled.
The right to shut down legislative sessions. You know, Matt Walsh said it's this silence is violence thing. It's like now you can't even restore order. Yeah, AOC this weekend said on TV openly, we should just ignore judges that we don't like. Just ignore them. And you have the right to shut down legislative sessions. And as you point out, corporate America, if they don't go along with what the left wants, they're complicit in violence. They've found this a remarkable way to just bully everybody into behaving the way they want.
And corporate America is a great example of that, because some of this is from ideologues infiltrating corporate America and rising to positions of power and inflicting this woke agenda stuff on us. But some of it is the government going to these corporations and saying, if you don't teach this propaganda, if you don't have DEI and ESG and these other propaganda programs they put together, then we'll hurt you. We'll specifically hurt you in various ways as the government. And we're the 800-pound gorilla you can't afford not to listen to. So corporate America has been bent into another tool of compulsion and totalitarianism. And it's another great example how it's everywhere all the time. And you get ideas like this. Silence is violence. That's a totalitarian idea. The idea that if you don't speak up and affirm their agenda, you're an enemy that has to be destroyed. Just, you can't even be quiet. You can't bow out. You can't just say, I want no part of this. That makes you the enemy and we'll come after you.
John Hayward's at Breitbart, as I said. He's at Doc_0 on Twitter. He's worth a follow if you're a Twitter user, Doc_0. Gosh, there's a lot. AOC now suggesting we just ignore judicial rulings. I don't know if you heard her say that on over the weekend, but take a listen to this. This is with her and Anderson Cooper.
There has been thought, I believe, given to this. Senator Ron Wyden has already issued statements, for example, advising what we should do in a situation like this, which I concur, which is that I believe that the Biden administration should ignore this ruling. I think that we, the courts have the legitimacy and they rely on the legitimacy of their rulings. And what they are currently doing is engaged in an unprecedented and dramatic erosion of the legitimacy of the courts. It is the justices themselves.
So, but I mean, the nut of that is just ignore rulings that you don't feel comport with what's decent and right. So You do that and what have you. I mean, what's left?
Right. Well, these are the same people that were screaming to high heaven that whatever happened on January 6th was worse than the Civil War, and it was a challenge to our sacred, precious democracy. And you get a little bit further down the road, and here's this fascist twit sitting there giving an interview and saying, you know what, we're just going to ignore the parts of democracy we don't like. If you vote for people and they appoint judges and they rule in a way we don't like, we're just going to ignore that, and we'll just invade the legislature and shut it down. I mean, it's fascism. That's the right word for it. That's exactly where all these people are getting. They're all driving these different ideological vehicles, and they're all heading towards the conclusion that fascism is the only way to run a government of this size, a country of this size. And one of the defining attributes of fascism is that the party transcends the government. And that's what she's saying. The party is more powerful than the state. If the party loses an election, it'll just ignore the results. It'll rig the ballot to make sure it doesn't lose. And then if it does lose, it'll ignore the results, and you can have all the judicial rulings you want, and we'll just ignore them because the party is overall. All hail, all glory to the party. That's what she's saying. I mean, that's it. It's ugly. It's terrifying. You never thought you were going to hear it in the United States of America, but here we are.
The trick also, of course, in selling this stuff is they cling to things like, ladies, they want you barefoot and pregnant. They're never going to allow you to not be pregnant. They're going to throw black people out of the legislature. This is Jim Crow. They're mean. Somehow they took the murder of Christian school children and turned it into the martyr being the murderer. I mean, they're remarkably gifted at this. I've never seen anything quite like the turnaround they can employ on these issues.
They move fast because this is an extremist party that's on this headlong rush into oblivion. They smell total final victory. They think they control everything now, and so they don't feel any hesitance. There was a time 20, 30 years ago, they would have been reluctant to be this blatant about glorying in the death of children and using it to advance their agenda and telling you the child killer was the real victim. 20, 30 years ago, that would have been unthinkable. But today, they think they've pretty much got it all locked down, so why not? They just let their hair down and say stuff like that.
Yeah, it's really something. Are you fatalist? Where are you on this? It's like today I see, TikTok. Biden has decided, by the way, this just in breaking news, Al Roker interviewing the president and first lady at the White House Easter egg roll this morning. And the breaking news is Biden tells Al Roker he's definitely running next year. So if you were losing sleep, John, yeah.
That's such a comfort to know. TikTok's a great example. TikTok is this Chinese intelligence spyware thing that's been seeded all over the country. It's incredibly toxic. It's incredibly dangerous. And the Republicans are, more like an old school political party. They see something that's obviously a foreign threat to the United States. They see it has this toxic effect on kids, and they say this is dangerous. It shouldn't be allowed. We need to take action against it. The Democrats rub their hands. We can use this. Yep. What are you telling me? You've got millions of kids hypnotized by this Chinese intelligence designed death trap. Get me some of that action. Let's have some TikTok influencers in here right now so we can lock down the younger generation. What a difference between the parties. The Democrats think always and only of power, power, power. If they think they can use something to get power, they don't care what it's doing to your kids. Believe me. Look at what they're doing in schools right now. They love your kids being destroyed in every conceivable way because it gives them power. That's the only thing they think about.
The thing is, I don't feel literally outnumbered. I know the data, and I look at it on paper, and I say it can't be that this mentality and ideology outnumbers us. It doesn't literally, does it? But it says, Matt Walsh was tweeting over the weekend, we're just not great at mobilizing. We get mad, we tweet, we go home. Silence is violence. I mean, they're next level. We're not that highly organized. Can we get better at organizing, do you think, John?
Well, I think we can be. That's one of the keys to doing this. I'm not totally fatalistic. I think there are ways to turn this around. And one of the ways you do it is by organizing and staying motivated and resisting efforts to break you down and shut you down and silence you. You have to be vigilant. And where you have power, you have to use it. If the Republican is the governor, if you've got a Republican state legislature, you need to be picking battles that matter, winning fights that matter, scoring points, moving the ball down the field to turn this stuff around. It's the only thing that you can do. So I'm not completely fatalistic about it. but also you have to be realistic about the scale of what you're up against, and that's why you have to remain determined. One of the reasons totalitarianism is popular as an ideology around the world is that it's a force multiplier. It lets a small group of ideologically determined people with resources convince the majority that each and every one of you is isolated and alone. Just like you were saying, you feel like you're surrounded, and yet it turns out these whack jobs are like 10% of the population, but they're everywhere because their message is everywhere. That's what you have to fight against, that illusion that they have you surrounded.
Well, that's exactly right. Like the idea that this person, this dude in a dress, like transgender makes up like less than a percentage of the total population, yet they get their own beer can. That can make you feel like half the country's wearing a dress. Half the men in the country are wearing dresses now.
Well, they're less than 0.1% of the population, but all of our society is being rewritten to accommodate them. It's like they're 0.1%, but they have more power than the French kings of old, in the days of the Revolution.
Yes.
They can dictate everything about American life. And that's how you do that, by making your message be everywhere, blasting it in people's faces all day, every day. Go after their kids, have the kids come home from school from these Maoist struggle sessions, and they start regurgitating trans propaganda to their astonished parents who can't believe this is happening to their children. That's how they make you feel like you're isolated, alone, and outnumbered, but you absolutely aren't. And as long as you remember that you have them outnumbered, you can start reversing this.
Great stuff from John Hayward. He's the National Security Deputy Editor at Breitbart. I should also mention that McCarthy, the Speaker of the House, had a meeting with the head of the Taiwanese government and did so at the Reagan Library instead of traveling there. Gordon Chang was with us last week, and he didn't like that. He said he thought McCarthy should have traveled to Taiwan and thought that was a bit of weakness from McCarthy, that if the real strength would have been in going. Do you agree with that?
I get what he's saying, and McCarthy said he may yet go, so I can understand where he's coming from, but you have to be realistic. You have Joe Biden in the White House. This is not the time to provoke the Chinese. I mean, and they're winning diplomatically with Joe Biden as this doddering wreck in the White House. If everybody slept on this over the weekend, they're peeling Europe away. The French president, Emmanuel Macron, he goes to Beijing, he meets with Xi Jinping while McCarthy is meeting with Tsai Ing-wen, the Taiwanese president, and Macron, the French president, comes out of this meeting and says, we Europeans, we shouldn't follow America's lead on Taiwan. We shouldn't be in bed with the Americans on this. I mean, you're watching the Chinese peel the rest of the world away from us while Joe Biden falls down a flight of stairs. I mean, this is not the time to provoke China. You need to get through the Biden presidency and have a real president before you start a fight like that.
Meanwhile, Ukraine war plans leak, prompts Pentagon investigation from the New York Times. I don't know how I feel about this story. It seems like they're suggesting the Russians both benefit from the leak and organized the leak. I don't think you can have it both ways, but that's kind of the way the New York Times writes it. Like, Russia will glean some very important stuff, but then it's also Russia cooked the books on this and doctored it up to make them look better. So which is it?
Yeah, I think they've pretty well determined that some of the documents were photoshopped and altered. So maybe this is something Russia didn't organize, but they're ruthlessly exploiting it for propaganda purposes now that it fell in their laps. But it does tell you that we have a big problem with securing classified information in this country, which shouldn't surprise anybody. I mean, every day we find out Joe Biden's got another 1,000 classified documents in his closet. Nobody's been taking this stuff seriously. It's a bipartisan problem, but it's a lot more the Democrats because they get away with it. When a Republican gets caught with one classified document, it's a scandal. Joe Biden turns out to have 1,500 of them in his closet, and it's like, oh, whatever. So, I mean, that we haven't been taking this stuff seriously for a long time, and it has made our intelligence system vulnerable.
I didn't check in with you, and just briefly, I'll ask you, the Trump indictment formally occurs. What of that? Where does this go?
Well, it's obvious it's roiled the polling in the early stages of the Republican primary. Still way too early to say who it's going to be, but it seems like it's rallying support around President Trump on the Republican side, and then poll after poll is dropping that say independents are repulsed by this, they hate Trump, they think he deserves to be indicted, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, it seems like it's setting up maybe the one scenario that Joe Biden wins in the times to come. And we got to be careful about that. I know a lot of people get angry when you say President Trump can't win. They're loyal to him. They think he's getting a railroad job here. But you got to be realistic about what people are saying. And independent voters are vitally important to the Republicans. I think Obama proved that Democrats can alienate independents but still eke out a win. I don't think Republicans can. So they have to think about this stuff.
John Hayward's National Security Deputy Editor at Breitbart. He's Doc_0 on Twitter. Follow him for always pithy and great insights. Thank you, John, so much.
The Chris Stigall Show podcast.